Truss has already said, and she's committed to very large tax cuts. Those are to corporation tax and to national insurance. Mainly that's about saying that she doesn't agree with the tax rises that Rishi Sunak either put in place or was about to put in place when he was Chancellor. So she's got a big package there. On top of that, obviously, the global economy developments with gas prices mean she's already put in place very big measures, increasing borrowing very significantly over this year and next to pay for support for households and the support for businesses that you've been discussing on the programme this evening. And then on top of that, we've got a deterioration in the economy, which means that we're seeing higher interest rates and higher inflation, and that will lead to higher borrowing on its own. So the combination of all three of those means that what we're going to learn about on Friday is a very, very big increase in government borrowing.
And how concerned should we be, or not, about a big increase in government borrowing?
Well, I mean, your listeners and viewers are probably used to hearing over the last few years very large borrowing figures because that's how we got through the pandemic. And obviously, the financial crisis before that also included large amounts of borrowing as we had to nationalise some of our biggest banks. So I think, there are reasons you need to do that. I think what we're seeing, though, is a choice here. It's pretty much unavoidable that we were going to be doing more borrowing as the economy slowed, but also that we would do more borrowing to cope with these truly exceptional increases in energy prices. I think it's completely reasonable that the government's saying, look, some of these energy price rises are likely to be temporary, and so borrowing from tomorrow's taxpayers to help today's bill payers makes good sense. What they're doing on top of that, though, is not doing as much as they could to mitigate how much borrowing that help with energy bills requires, either by going further on windfall taxes or actually by capping the windfalls that companies are making, particularly renewable or nuclear electricity generators who are seeing big windfalls, even though they don't have anything to do with gas or oil production. And then on top of that, she's saying now's the time for lower taxes than my predecessor thought we needed. So there's things that are unavoidable about higher borrowing, but then on top of that, she's making choices not to minimise some of the increase in borrowing, and then on top of that, to choose to have lower taxes too.
I mean, I guess what Liz Truss's team would say is that this is all part of trying to inject growth into the economy. So lower taxes, they hope, will stimulate growth. Some of the energy changes will help bring down inflation. All of these things are good news for the economy. I mean, do you think there's merit in that argument?
There's definitely merit in saying it's a good idea for the British government to be focused on growth. The last 15 years have been a period of relative decline for the UK economy. We've been outgrown by most other major advanced economies, and that is making us all poorer. The bottom, the middle and the top are all worse off because of that slowdown in our economy. So she's right to focus on that, and she's right to say that that will involve doing some unpopular things. Cutting taxes isn't actually that unpopular a thing, you'll recognise. And also the level of taxation isn't the most important thing in determining your growth rates. Lots of the economies that have grown faster than us have higher rates of tax, and the United States has significantly lower rates of tax and has grown faster than us. So I think the role of tax in driving economic growth is understated compared to, for example, firms being able to build things when they want to, or us having the right levels of skills for our workforce, or indeed the right numbers of workers. And actually firms investing is important for our growth rates, but it isn't really lower corporation tax that tends to drive that.
I just want to have a look at a couple of charts, if I may. The first one is from the Resolution Foundation, so hopefully you'll be quite familiar with them. The first one shows the impact of the policy changes introduced by Liz Truss in 2022 to 23. And then just quickly to go to the next one, because this is the one that's really interesting. The second year, 2023 to 4, really shows here how the planned policy changes do disproportionately help richer households. So if you like the ones towards the richer scale, the number 10, the richest households are benefiting most from those policy changes. I mean, Liz Truss at least has been quite open about this, hasn't she? To say that she doesn't necessarily think that it's a problem if the wealthier households disproportionately benefit from some of those policies.
Yeah, I mean, what those charts show is, firstly, there's a lot of support going in that's been announced by Liz Truss, but was also put in place by the previous government under Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak. So there's a lot of support going in with a number of different measures. Overall, this year, that's providing quite a lot of support to low-income households, middle-income households and high-income households. It's providing roughly the same support to all of those income groups, even though obviously it's lower-income households that will be suffering most from rising energy bills. They don't have savings to draw down on. They can't cut back on expensive holidays to pay the energy bill. Now, if you look at next year, the chart you're showing now, you're right that when you combine the dropping away of lots of the support that's more focused on the bottom and the middle this year, and then you add on top, and you have a energy price guarantee, that's the price cap, the 2,500 price cap for households and the energy bills that goes to everybody, but you add on top of that the big cut to national insurance that they're planning to announce on Friday, then it is the higher income households that see most support next year. Now, Liz Truss has said that the national insurance rise that she wants to reverse, she recognises benefits richer households. I think whether or not you believe in that level of national insurance, you want it up or you want it down, I think what it definitely isn't is a good way to target support at people during this cost of living crisis. I think there are good arguments for higher and level low of taxes.
Time. Thank you very much indeed, Torsten Bell there.